Well, hello all. Happy Halloween or Happy Day of the Dead or whatever great Halloween or All Hallows Eve celebration you get to. I hope you're having a great day and getting prepared for the holiday. It's always fun. I like Halloween. There's a lot about it that I find sort of dark and mysterious in some. But for the most part, I like the idea of the remembrance of Halloween. I really love the Day of the Dead, Dios de los Muertos. I more likely butchered that. I apologize. But I like that because the idea that as long as people remember you, you survive in the afterlife. I'm hoping that I survive in the afterlife longer than that, but we see how things go. I like it because my friend Steve, who I always feel is with me in gaming, and is why I love the gaming so much, because there's so much more to the gaming than just the games themselves. And maybe that's what I'm going to try to talk about now and get things over to you. Because normally I talk to you about the mechanics of games and why games and who's gaming and what you do and things like that. But the importance I try to bring across, especially with games like RPG games, is RPG games are a game style onto their own. So first of all, I think there's basically 4 games, and that's what I would give them up to you. First, I look at what I call system games. I'm gonna put my eyes on for a second so I don't forget and say things that I don't mean, but leave out things that I think are important. System games are things like chess and Go. I'm sure things like bridge and other games I don't really play are very much like that. These are games that are based upon the system. The system doesn't change. It's very, very, very systematic in that its mechanics. It's strictly a matter of being a purist. The mechanics are known. So how good are you with the mechanics, and how smart are you, or how good are you versus your opponents? Poker in many ways is that way too, which is another game I do play because I do like it, both for the fact that it is a system game that I am confident enough to play, at least at a mediocre level, and sometimes it has a money remuneration. But mostly I find that if I play really well, I just hope to eke out a small enough to maybe pay for my lunch. Such is the game. These games now are starting to disappear in many ways because, like the chess computers that now exist, even the ones that I think play Go, are starting to beat all the human players. It makes sense because the system, no matter how vast it is, still is very limited. Why I said that people who play system games and love them really should just play system games and love them, because you lose abilities the more you spread your mind out about different types of games. The other games are RPG games. Now, I think a lot of you have playing RPGs. I tend to talk about them the most. I'm obviously writing one, and I had a very interesting experience last night playing my game with Mark, my friend, running my game for me, running his idea of how he thinks that my rules should be, or how he interprets them, and would like to add to them. Now, he's really smart. I'd love to have him involved in helping me write the game because he's really good at that too. But I disagree, like anything else, with a lot of people on how things work because of the nature of them. RPG games are unique in the fact that I believe they are very different than the other 3 categories I'm going to basically talk about. RPG games are games that really should not have borders. All the other game systems have borders. They need to have borders so that they can be played within a confine of time. A board game, an RPG game, a miniature game, any other game, a mixed bag game, it doesn't matter. Normally have a fixed amount of time that they're going to be played. And then you have a winner and a loser, preferably usually me the winner and you the loser. That's a saying that I stole from my friend Kevin because that's what he likes. But they are not a living, growing, building game. That's what role-playing is. Role-playing to me is a game of building friends. It is a game of building emotional events that help people grow. Unfortunately, lots of people want to make them a system game. Lots of people want to make them what I'll call a mixed bag game, which is a mechanics-based game. They're not. They've never been. People will try to make them that way because you can make money making and producing and selling rule systems. And people like to live in the systems. And last night, what was brought to my attention is Mark, as he was running what I call the large rules for lots of mobs of creatures and stuff. And, you basically have the mob rule. And I had a rule down. It was written, I wasn't necessarily completely happy with it. We've been polishing and working on it. Mark threw it into the fire and was coming up with things based upon what he thought I was doing in the game. And I said, wait a minute, that's not how I have it. There are rules. And the rules are already written. And even though they're not perfect yet, they're great. Well, Mark said, no, they're not. So somehow in the PDF that was written, at least I have not delved through it, done a deep delve yet, since it all just happened last night. He says they don't exist. I sort of have a concept of the way we've been playing it over the playtesting games, but somehow it was not codified sufficiently that he could understand it or that he could utilize it in the way he wanted to. So the way he figured it was going to work was, I said, Mark, it's not. I'll tell you right now, you will wipe everybody out. The game will be lost. There is no point in fighting it because your system is broken. The reason I know that is I've already hacked over this for years doing the game rules with my partner Steve, and we have found this out. So we told him how it was going to work. But Mark said, well, the problem with that is there's this multi-die rule. And that is a flaw because, as he said to me, the basis of my game is the idea that the game should be fast and the players should make all the rules and the roles and basically come up with the concepts. The idea of making the rules is based upon that when you roll an enlightenment, a double 9 or a triple 9 or a quadruple 9 or whatever situation is, you will then design your systems. You will design your skills and abilities. You will be able to do things that are only capable for you to do based upon what you did at the time and alike. And those who have followed me understand what I'm sort of saying. Many of you others are going to think it's Greek. But that is kind of how I want the game. And I wanted it is to really, if nothing else, make a snapshot of how RPG games should be. And what they should be is yours. Because as I say about every RPG game, the role-playing game is just the oxygen and the gravity and all the mechanics that work. Well, anybody who's living in a real world knows that the mechanics and the way things work change dramatically from year to year, from month to month, from day to day, and also change depending on how smart they are. Now, I tried to borrow Elon Musk's brain so I could make this maybe more enlightening to you. So I didn't mean that to be a pun, but I guess it is one. But, he wasn't willing to loan it out to me, so I'm having to deal with what little cranial abilities I have. So I'm going to try to basically stay on this. Role-playing games should be built by the players. If you're using a mechanical system, I understand. Whatever system that is, whatever you're happiest with it. I mean, I've played every version of Dungeons & Dragons. And, they've all left me, to some extent, dissatisfied. I loved 4th edition. Matt Colville, as you heard, and I both thought it was the best edition of D&D. The reason it was is because it had the most sense of balance, and it had the most sense of the fact that the characters would become different from time to time. It had a lot of problems. They were all trying to give you a balance. And once you start to try to do balance, once again, you've now made it into a system game, a mechanic game. And when people are playing system games and the mechanical type games, they're always trying to play the game, not the players. And that's a mistake. A great game that I love is a game called Upfront that Avalon Hill made. I was really very good at it. I won many championships. I never became national champion, but my friend Don and I would play a lot. He was editor of the General Magazine. He became very good. He won many, many championships. We were pretty dominant with maybe another 10, 15 in Los Angeles area. And I'm sure in other major metropolitans that played it, you'd have the equal number of people who were that competent in the game. So we would go to tournaments and there would be, it was not a big tournament, but we'd have 10, maybe 20 during the main part of Avalon cons and stuff, maybe 30 people playing the game, which was awesome because you got to play with the best of the best. And of course, since I was one of the best, it was fun for me. We actually then taught Dawn's girlfriend and wife how to play this game. And at first she didn't necessarily feel confident about it, but she got better and better and we kept teaching her more and more, and she got better and better. And then we dawned on us that she was quite good. So we took her to one of the tournaments, the big national tournaments to play. where she did really well. And I remember I've mentioned to you, she came to me during one of the halftime breaks and said, wow, most of these guys are bums. And it was true. I mean, there is a matter of how much time you put into a system game to how well you play it. Well, that was a great game. And it still is a great game. And if you can play it, I would suggest you deal in and work on it. It has a lot of great mechanics, which limits it. The other great system game, which I think is fabulous, I loved it. I ran 3 hobby shops with the game. That game being Magic the Gathering. It is a really excellent system game, but it has a different flaw or a different advantage. It is a game that is dominated by money. Now, Pokemon would be that same way. And all other of those, the MMOs where, you basically could buy more cards. Magic is awesome at it. The Seal Deck Magic the Gathering games, I think, are some of the best in the world to play because you have a limited pool, or I say if you're going to play with a group of 10 friends, you basically keep your pool and you decide, we'll all buy 2 starters and a box of boosters, and we'll only allow the trades within ourselves, and we'll play the game where we each put up an ante card, and at the end, the winner gets the ante and the loser loses a card, and you play it for a set period of time and see who comes out the best. Now, there's a big luck factor because all the cards are not created equal. But as I played it early on, one of the first games I ever ran in a tournament was I ran a 3 Black Lotus, multiple Black Moxes, and the rest Swamps, very few of all these things, with a Nether Shadow, which was a rare card. But nobody thought it was any good because it really wasn't that good. And a few Plague Rats, and then some counter spells and death spells to kill off things that I couldn't necessarily deal with it. And basically this deck just rejuvenated itself. It would just keep coming back. The monsters would die when they had multiple numbers of monsters on them. The monsters would then come back and they would attack. And even though the monsters weren't very good, you just get swamped because the deck would literally fall out on its own. By game 2, if the whole deck wasn't on the board, I had made an error. That's something that I had bad luck. The problem with Magic as it went on is there were many other super powerful cards. Counter spells. The Black Lotus became the most ridiculous priced card. And the tournament rules were, of course, you had to have the card to play with it. Now, when I had my shop and we had in-store gaming every night, most of the people were obviously playing Magic the Gathering, and we were all prepping up. So we allowed everyone to make photocopies of the cards they wanted to build for a deck, and they could just put them in sleeves, because by then the card values were going up and up and up. And people didn't want to have their unsleeved cards, because I cannot tell you how many Moxes and a Black Lotuses got destroyed early on in the gaming by the fact that we were literally just playing them and using them until they became bits of tissue paper, which I know makes people cringe, including me, knowing what their value would be if I had kept them in sleeves from the very day one. But oops, who knew that this game was going to become the monolith and the great game that it is? And it is a great game, but one must understand what the game is. Now, the way we did it is people would play, they'd build their deck, and we'd have some 16-year-old kid who didn't have a pot nor window. But all the people in our group would say, okay, you got the best deck. You know how to play it. The kid's like super smart. He's got the game hooked up. And then we would go around and say, who has these cards? And we'd gather up the Moxes. And at this point, Moxes were really only worth about $50, $60 or whatever. And some of the big monsters were only worth like $10 or $15 or $20. They're not like the mega prices they became. But a lot of these came, and there were some great notable decks that were made, counterspell decks, and all the different decks that got produced. There was one that I can't remember the name of the game right now, but it'll come to me later. But it was all built upon a black deck, and it drove certain cards that were totally worthless into being super valuable because, again, it allowed these cards to come in and do immediately what they were supposed to do. And that made them more powerful. So I ended up making money because I knew these cards were going to jump at the next tournament. So I bought them. I went around all over LA and bought them from hobby shops for $10 or $5 or whatever a piece that I could buy them from, and had a boatload of them and went to the con. And of course, at the con, I said, they'll be worth $100 at the end of the game con. And after the first round, they became worth $100. And then I unloaded mine and made, a killing, which was, very capitalist of me, not necessarily most charitable. But like I said, in my shops, we allowed people to build it, and then we allowed them to use the others. And then I had lots of really valuable cards, which I would loan out to people for tournaments. Because to be very frank, most of these young guys who were playing were better strategists and tech builders than I was. I was good at building decks, but I was running shops. I still had my career. I was trying to, advance the various shops, run the pro tours, run the women's club, the Magic Saturday night game, help out. We did pre-releases. We did all kinds of stuff. It was an awesome time in gaming. And other games came out that I loved. The Lord of the Rings, Star Trek, there was all these other games. There were all these other MMOs that were constantly coming out. Galactic Empires, which I loved, which nobody bought into, but we were the only team that really played it. Other people would come and try to beat us, but we had such Tuesday nights we'd play and we'd slaughter everybody who showed up because they were bums and we had everything. And that was the nature of MMOs. A lot of people fell off because, of course, it required economy. And since the tournaments you had to have the cards, there weren't a lot of hobby shops like us where we had a lot of guys who had money, who would loan out their cards to people, with the guarantee that they would return them after the deal. And that went on for a while. Then Wizards realized that they had to ban a lot of cards, so a lot of the big blue got banned. A lot of the big cards got banned, and that changed the dynamic. But the ones that still play those type of tournaments, those cards are ridiculous. I don't even know what a Black Lotus goes for. I know it's a ton. I sold mine, I think, when they were $1,000 or something like that. And I needed the money. I think they are mega times $1,000 now. And of course, they're collectibles now and things like that. So their issuing value is based upon their quality, which I always find strange because Carta Mundi was not the best printer. I was in the packaging and printing business. I had 2 or 3 printers overseas that I could have literally duplicated all the cards that were there, and they would have been as good or better. The better would have likely made it me, but that would have been criminal, and I surely was not going to do that because I was not going to risk ruining a great game, nor did I really tell this to anybody until way after the fact when they were able to get things into a protectorate because, I love the hobby more than I love the money. The other games that are there that I find really important are the mixed bag games. Mixed bag games are all the other board games like group games or other things that you can buy that aren't really just straight system games, that have a variable. Monopoly, many people would think it's a system game, but it's really not because you pick up a randomizer. RPGs, not a system game, even though people play it like a system game, because you pick up a die. And the die and the change, whenever you have a dynamic like that, a big luck factor jumps into the game. And that luck factor is just straight chance. That's why Vegas lives. They live on whatever manipulation of the luck they can do. And that's how it works. Now, these are why you play games. Why I think all games are great is you should play them. If you want a great game to play, a little expensive, but if you can find a group to play it with, Cthulhu Wars is a great system game with a randomization. And what I liked about that, there are many games that other people will think of and you'll come up with that are like system games. Risk or anything else where there is a luck factor in the game. Merchant of Venus, all the other games, a lot of games Avalon Hill made, these are that game. Panzer Blitz, Panzer Leader, all the shipboard games. There's tons and tons and tons of them. They are a system, and you can only win within that system, but they are not a system game. Stratego, I would think, is more of a system game because there's not a die roll. You have your characters, you build up your defenses, and then you try to remember what you did. Very much more of a system game. There are other games that, like I said, are in the mixed bag tone because there's a luck factor involved. And then there's games that have different mechanics. The ones that allow you to obviously buy your decks, buy your cards, and all things are not equal, they're tough. But even then, when we were playing Vampire: The Eternal Struggle, which another game I love to play, which was a great game. And in tournaments, what they did is they would usually limit you to 4 cards of any one type. Magic did that too. They started to get into card limitations and things like that. You can only have one of the power cards. So many variables because what they find out is the game is broken. And, I don't play Pokemon. I have not played it. I have Yu-Gi-Oh!, all these games. I know they're great. I like Legends of the Five Rings. That was a great game. Matt was playing it again when the new ones came out. We were enjoying that game. That was a good game. But again, it was a game that can be, was broken by Magic. When I had people in my shop, especially the young guys who didn't have money but really had great brains, who knew how to build games and build decks and really could break the game, I would give it to them. The game would come in. I said, here, I'm giving you a sealed, package of boosters and for starters, go break my game. Go break this game. If you tell me in 2 weeks if this game is good, if it's good, we'll start running it in the store. I'll start buying more stock and we'll start running tournament events for it. If it's not, it's going to go the wayside. And there are a lot of games I love that I wish weren't broken, but they are. And, that's the thing. But going back to the game that I think most of the time you hear me talk about, which is RPGs. And after the situation that happened the other night with Mark, where he thought he knew he was coming up with his own rules because there weren't rules of mine, and maybe he's right. I'm having to dig through it to find out if I need to really quantify my enlightened game, because really I want it to be perfect. And that's why I keep running it and doing versions and redoing it and everything else, because the ideal thing here in an RPG game is it's not about the mechanics. It shouldn't be a system game, and there should be no level of balance at all, because a balanced game in an RPG game is no fun. If you're saying that I'm going to sit down and I'm going to figure out how to break the system, and believe me, I've seen many people do it, you have lost the concept of the game. And the whole thing I've told people, they say, well, I've got this character, he's really bad and this, and he does this and he does that. And I said, yeah, I've been there, done that, have the t-shirt. But what happens in a situation like that, if you're just trying to beat the mechanics, it's really not going to be a great game. It's just going to be, are you smarter than your friend? Well, maybe. Do you play it more than he does? Well, maybe. Do you have all the rules and you study it? It's really going to be that. But that's not what you want. You want to be able to bring people into this game who've never played and said, oh God, I remember a quote from, when we were trying to get Craig Steele to RPG for us. And it's like, well, come on, Steve, come on, Craig, you got all this stuff. Just come on out here and start running games. And he says, yeah, he goes, the problem is I have to DM a game for Matt Colville and Jim Murphy. And it's like, oh, well, we're the most acceptable. And I think I've said this in other videos. Normally, super experienced DMs, super experienced players in D&D who aren't just trying to show off, are really going to be the best people you want in your game, because they're going to help you. There's an old adage about basic players when D&D first came out. It was like, don't help the DM. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, the poor DM, since it was usually me, had to keep track of everything. I had to keep track of the monsters, and I kept track of the adventure, and I kept track of what the map looks like, and I had to paint figures, and I had to know, I didn't know the rules. I had to do all these things. The players half the time didn't have a pencil, as I think you've heard me mention. And when I played with players last night, there was a bit of a debate, and a lot of them say, well, I don't necessarily have time to read all the rules and look at all the nuances and everything else. And I said, yeah, I understand that. I've dealt with that for 50 years. It's not my problem. All I can do is give you a game that's going to be what you want it to be based upon what you want to do. And that's hopefully what I'm doing. And that's hopefully what D&D is doing. And I really hopefully hope that's what Draw Steel is going to do, because Matt Colville loves the hobby. I have never seen anybody who could have taken a lot of money he made from his game, stuffed it in his pocket, and flown off to Bimini, and more than likely had a fun life with, his girlfriend or wife or whoever he's going to be with, and enjoying his hobby. And not be doing what he's done, which is hire all kinds of people to come in and make his game the best they can, so he can make his videos the best he can. And those of you who follow Matt know he's really articulate and really good at what he does. But I knew Matt much when he was a starving gamer. Starving. All his friends worried if he would be able to make rent or his next meal. And the thing is because he was working in the industry he loved, which was the gaming industry. Now, I don't want to blow smoke up Matt's butt. He doesn't need to. There's many of people blowing smoke up his butt. But the point of it is I was very appreciative, because I didn't do that. I love the hobby. I played the hobby for me. I played the hobby because I loved it. I played it because I love to paint the miniatures. But I went out and got a career. I made 6 figures. I did the whole thing. Only when I had everything, or in my case, thought I had everything, did I basically say, I'm going to build a hobby shop. I'm going to build a tournament center. We're going to have gaming in store every night. We're going to help with tournaments. We're going to be involved with the game companies. We're going to invite them down to our shop, because we're going to have in-store gaming every night, and they can come down and demo their new games, and they're going to come down and run their stuff. The only thing I kind of said is don't do RPG except in the back room, because it's usually too messy with the pizza boxes and the people who haven't bathed and whatever the problem normally is. But the hobby itself is awesome, and I love RPG. I love it normally for all the purity. I'm now playing, my friend Craig Steele, who I just mentioned, is running Traveler. He's running the newest version of Traveler, which I thought was going to suck. And I told him the other night after he ran a game where I got knocked out, which I wasn't sure was going to be able to happen because I made, of course, a very broken character for Traveler, but Ed, it kicked my butt. And I thought, wow, I got to tell you, you played a great game, Craig. Not only that, this version of Traveler is actually better than the original. And the people who put it together still hold on to all the good factors of Traveler, the things that made Traveler great and fun as an RPG, but the mechanics weren't as broken, so I couldn't cheat as much as I used to be able to. Now, I don't really cheat. I massage the game rules. And that's what I do in games. And I do it because, well, frankly, everybody does it. Whenever you're playing an RPG, unfortunately, people then don't play it like a system game. They play it as the mixed gag game. What works best? Everybody goes for what works best. It works. It can be fun. If you're playing any board game on a Saturday with your buddies and you're going to play Terraforming Mars, Terraform Mars is great. I usually use it as a background when I'm listening to news. I put it on, I play it solitary with a machine, or I'll play it solitary as in a league or something they're doing with people. And the difference there is a perfect play. That's why AI is going to be a big danger to gaming in the future. Like it may be a big danger to business or banking or anything. The computer can look and find the best value because it'll rate everything, or players will rate it. But cards, all things are not equal in card games. All things are not equal in life. Not everybody has the same brain pan. Like I said, I was bummed that Elon Musk would not loan me his brain for my event. But it makes it harder for you to have a better game. That's the thing. You don't want RPG to be quantifiable. I think a lot of games will eventually go away because they are quantifiable. Some games we play, I remember in many times we would sit down and it would be like we would play a game, and if a certain person got a certain setup, they would just go, well, we'll quit. We know you're going to win. I mean, it would be like, Kevin and Don's feel was, don't play Monopoly with me. Don't play Monopoly with me. He won't trade. He won't do this. He won't do that. Everything he does will improve his position. He will eventually beat you. You'll think he's giving you a good deal, but he's not. And that was kind of true. And it worked out very well for me. And I had played in a lot of Monopoly tournaments and actually won money doing so. And then I played with my friend Steve Key's family. And he had been playing Monopoly with all his kids all their life. And oh my God, they were all cutthroat. And it was like, whoa, this is awesome. Now as in my older ages, I find that my brain doesn't work quite as well as it used to. So I now have to depend on my good looks and people enjoying my company more than my skill levels. But going back to the concept of gaming and why you should, if not play our game, play every game like my game. I love the concept that players now make all the determinations in the game. They roll their attacks, they roll their defenses. Yes, they have to work within the rule mechanics, because if not, then people will be just throwing darts at a board or punching each other in the face, and it'll break down and become less fun. But other games that are mechanic games, system games, I love chess. But as I told people, if you're going to play chess, that's all you can play. And at some point, you will know how smart you are. And after I dedicated a couple years to playing chess, I realized I was an idiot. After I played about 3 months worth of Go, I realized I was a bigger idiot. So I realized it was good for me to not play system games. I go to the games which are what I call mixed bags. Circus Maximus up front. I mean, Panzer Blitz, Panzer Leader, it doesn't matter. Board games, miniature games, army games, Warhammer 40K, Warhammer Fantasy, I could win and do well in these games because I could play the odds better than a lot of people. I do pretty well sometimes in gambling games, but those are games that I think if you're going to do and dedicate yourself to gaming and you want to try to make money at it, become a professional. I did. I decided I was winning a lot playing, so I decided I would become a professional poker player. And I kept myself a record. And that was just so I could see how I was doing and whether it was something I could make positive money. So I didn't bet a lot. And I played for about 4 months. And then I looked at my record and realized I would have been better to go to work at McDonald's than play as a professional poker player. Because to actually make money, I have to get into tournaments or I have to play in big money games. And the problem playing with big money games is you get to play with bigger and brains, and you get to play with the people who really know the game. So the question was I smarter than them? And I made the realistic choice of most likely not. My brain pan is okay. I can, favor along. I do well at RPG because I have sort of a creative and can do things kind of on the fly or as it goes. And people tend to enjoy the RPG and the stories I unwind and my backgrounds and the things. It's much harder quantifying rules. And I'm doing that. And like I said, we modified the mob rule last night. There was a problem with the mob rule, and that was the multi-die thing. But Mark said, well, there really should be one die. And I said, I agree with you. And I think we sort of figured out a way that I still need to massage and work with to get it perfect. But I think I'll get it as close to perfect as possible. But if you play my game, Enlightened, or if you buy it, or you're playing it down the road, or you're already playing it, understand it's your game, not mine. If you have a question, you want me to answer it, yes, send me a message, ask me the question. I will tell you what I'm doing. But if you say, hey, I'm smarter than you, I'm going to do this, and I think it's better, do what you think is better. I want you to do that. What I'm trying to give you in all RPG games is every set of RPG rules is just a guideline. It is not a hard and fast system game. If you're playing it like that, you are going to disappoint yourself, your players, and your friends all at that. And at some point you will wake up and realize, okay, I played all these modules. I did really great. I did fabulous. I won tournaments. I did this thing. But you're going to realize you did the same thing as every other player who ever played the system played, because there was no originality. People who played with me, people who love to play with me, who kept playing with me, understand, and people who liked what I do, like Jordy and stuff, and started doing their own. It's the people who produce their own content and make their own worlds and build all that stuff. Eventually, they have built a piece of magic that you will share with them. That isn't Jim Murphy. It isn't D&D. It might be D&D. Might be Draw Steel. Might be, Matt Mercer's game. It might be Fantasy Trip. Might be Starguard. It could be a million different games that are out there. You guys have seen, I've showed you different game systems I have that I love. I would love to play lots of them, but you can't play everything. And once you have a group, they're going to want to play something where it's consistent. My guys have been lucky because they'll play my game and they're being very helpful to keep going along with the changing iterations and then fighting with me and all that. But that's the way you build something great. And do that with your RPGs, whatever you're playing. Doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what the genre is. Legends of the Five Rings, awesome. If you want to play Vampire the Eternal Struggle, awesome. You want to play something space game, Traveler, you want to play Star Trek, awesome. It doesn't matter. Star Wars, there's a million things out there in whatever you want to do. And I want you to do it. Take the rules and embrace them the most you can, and then sit down with your players and say, what do you like about the rules? What do you don't like about the rules? And then continue that on every month or two. Is the game still enjoyable? I didn't really think about this a lot till Craig said that. We played Craig's game. He's been running it for a few months. And one night, a few weeks ago, he said, you guys still enjoying playing my game? And we all went, yeah, we are. And I really was. Even though I tend to, because I'm old, fall asleep occasionally when it gets quiet and dull, the game is really, really good, and he's running it really, really well. So, yeah, I want to keep playing it. And the more I play it now, the more I love it. And the more he builds the world and the universe, and I don't know whether it's his or a module or whatever it is, he's doing a great job. So I try to keep myself in the dark and not, since I also don't play modules, people who play modules, they're not hurting me because it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. The only time I know is at the end when I realize, oh, you didn't give out all the treasure because the module said you had to go to every room and do whatever. It's like in tournaments when they had rules. I think I've told you this story. They had rules and, you determine who won by how many different things they did on the little knob that somebody thought up. Do these 9 different tasks and whoever does the most of them wins. Well, they asked me one day to DM a game because I knew the game. I did. People played it, said it was the best time they ever had playing the game, and they loved the role playing, but they didn't win the tournament. Why? Well, I didn't know what the 10 knobs were that I had to have them dial. So I was just playing the best RPG game I could for them, and I screwed them, because they were there for the 50 dealer dollars. Oops. This is how life goes. You learn by making your mistakes. Hopefully you don't make a lot of them. But when you are playing whatever game you're playing, and if it's an RPG, especially when you're introducing it to people, and if you're a new person and you want, go find some old burned out D&D player and say, hey, we would love for you to run this D&D game. And if even if it's one he said, I don't know, I'm playing another system that I never heard of before. It came from France, and it's different. I don't necessarily think I love it, but I like it. And I love what the players are doing with it. And the way the game works is you all set together. There's no DM. And when something happens, you roll randomly on a chart and it tells you what the adventure bit is. And then you all talk about yourself to tell you what it is. Well, it's easy for me. I can always figure out, what's these monsters doing this? And they've stolen these children and they're going to sell them off into slavery. And our job is to do A, B, and C. And they're like, hey, that's great. But then they'll add their bit and they'll add their other bit. And it was a fun game. And I'm enjoying it. Now, we haven't had a second or third session. But that's kind of common when people have real lives that are trying to move on and get the other things done and have bills to pay and all that. But if you are role playing, play your system games, chess, Go, great. Stay with them, poker, all whatever you love. If you're playing the mixed bag games, Upfront, Speed Circuit, any of the new games, and there's millions of them out there. Most games travel. It doesn't matter. I can't even name them all. There's so many of them. Play them. They're fun. They're great. And you're going to enjoy them, and you will build your game from that. Star Trek Ascendancy. Star Trek Ascendancy? I think that's it. Star Trek. There's a game where you build your universe, and it works. And it's a really excellent game, and it allows you to play with a crap load of people. So it really can be a fun game to sit down if you have like an entire weekend to play and, move all your stuff. It doesn't make any difference. It's up to what you deal with. But those are really the four concepts. So when you get into those games, try to turn your brain into that concept of the game. Chess, play nothing but chess. Chess is win, 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 do what wins. And unfortunately, it looks like computers are going to dominate that, because I don't think there's even chess masters who can beat any of the big chess computers. But the other games are still up for grabs. Paint the miniatures, do all that, play something new. There's lots out there. But when you play role-playing, realize the most important thing in the role-playing game are all the people around you. Make the story good for them. Make the rules good for them. If you have a rule, even if it's made by the perfect Jim Murphy, and my players don't like it, it's like, okay, wait, what do you think it should be? What do you feel like? Well, this is what I think. Well, how about if we modify it this way? How about if we modify it that way? It isn't contentious. You're not battling with the DM. You're never battling with the DM in an RPG game. The DMs, if they're even mediocre, are rooting for you. You just don't necessarily know it. They're trying to provide the best opportunity they can. Because when it boils down to it, you're not going to win a whole lot of money in an RPG game. You're not going to win grand tournaments and have $1 million prize like they do for other games. And that's going to be the nature. You're doing it because it is a shared story that you'll all build something that you'll have a shared experience with, that for people like me, 50 years later, you'll be able to sit with your friends, because they've become your friends now. Because not only did you game with them, you got into their lives and you were in their weddings and you traveled with them around the world. You met other games and you did other things, and you sometimes get together and just paint miniatures, because no matter what you have economically, you can always paint figures. Especially now with the 3D printing and just get some cheap paints and just start painting and play with your friends and have a great game. Now, I have rambled on here, and I know this is a ramble video, but I wanted to go into this because I love gaming so much. I wanted to understand it is all really a different facet, and you have to know what facet you are playing in. If it's a competitive tournament game and you're playing a mixed bag game, well, hopefully you know how to play Merchants of Venus better than the other guy playing Merchant of Venus. Or you hope to roll better dice. Believe me, I've lost many a speed circuit by being the best player on the table, and when I hit that final turn, I had to make it go for it because some other guy made 97 positive good die rolls, and I can't roll dice to save my life, as friends will tell you. And I finally make the one turn to win me the game. I got to make one roll. I only have to make anything but snake eyes. Guess what I roll? Oops. God loves me, but I think he's saving all my luck for when I really need it, like when I fell in the ocean and nearly drowned, and he just gave me a chance. Or when that car hit me doing 70 miles an hour and blew me into a pole with my girlfriend, and they left me for dead for 20 minutes because they figured I could not have survived the wreck, until some med tech walked up and stuck his hand through the broken sharded glass of the car and said, "This guy has a heartbeat." And then they got the machines out there to pry me out of this twisted metal. Life is an adventure. RPGs are the best thing you can do to people to make them feel the adventures and make them happy, but don't stick them in a box. Let them spread their wings and be as great as they can. And if they want to do more than what your game is, you figure out a way to make the game better for them. That's what makes the game great. The mechanics almost don't matter. Find them a set of mechanics you like. You can become loyal to them. I told you I played D&D when I lost trick with that. We found Fantasy Trip. Once we found Fantasy Trip, God, we kind of stuck with that. And we didn't even go, when he went into GURPS, we just said, forget GURPS. We don't need GURPS. Fantasy Trip is plenty good enough. And we could modify Fantasy Trip, and we did, and added where we thought it needed it, and took stuff away where we thought it was too much or overplay powerful. That's what you do. It's your game. It's always your game. And those people that are going to play with you are always going to be your friends. And that's what you want. If they're not, some will come and go. Some will find new groups with people that they like better than you. That's great. But you want to be there providing in this RPG statement the best thing you can. I'm sorry that, Hasbro owns Dungeons and Dragons and they're looking to make, something they want to make, if they're going to do something, it's got to make X amount of millions of dollars, or they're not going to bother. I get it. Or they're going to blow with the wind, or people who don't like them are going to say bad things about them. It's like why it took me so long before people asked me, you got to say something about what's going on. I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to disparage the game. It's not a bad game. I mean, do I think that I have created better games? Of course I do. I'm vain and pompous and self-serving, but the truth of it always is it's going to be what's best for your group. And, Magic the Gathering, tons of fun, very competitive. It's going to cost you money unless you want to get, played in sealed decks or whatever, or maybe they'll just, let you play in confined varios. And there's different styles. Play in what you can afford. And I don't even know if they're making Type 1 tournaments where they're out there and everyone's got all the biggest cards. You got a guy who's got a $50,000 deck. Who knows? But remember the point, the hobby's the hobby. Get down to games stores and play. Get down to HMGS and play games with me. Get down to tournaments where I might be and play games with me. I want to play. Find shops that have in-store gaming and buy your shit there. Go and enjoy their hobby and help them keep their doors open. I failed because, bad things happen with bad people. Sometimes that's the way life is. But the other thing I told people coming in, the minute you could go buy your product for 20% less or 10% less or whatever from somebody else was a chance that I was going to end up closing my doors. And once there was a disaster and my missus decided that she didn't want to live through it, so she bailed. It became a major disaster. I had to make a fish and cut bait and didn't want to. I would rather be running hobby shops right now, working for Yellow Submarine, because we were doing business with him, and I was hoping we were going to be the United States version of Yellow Submarine and just transfer the hobby all over the world. Oops, I failed. Well, that's what failures do. But that doesn't mean I'm not right. It doesn't mean that the game isn't worth every moment you spend in it. But you got to remember, it's not just you. It's all the other people you can drag into the game and make it great for them. So I give away painted miniatures. Some people buy and it's like, I'll paint your miniature. Here's a miniature. It's not the best I could have done with my Golden Demon skill because, quite frankly, with the eyes and my age, I don't paint Golden Demon anymore. I don't have the time nor the inclination. More likely, don't have the eyesight either. But I'm still pretty darn good. So, I'll paint your fig. Here you go. Boom, ready to go. You're in my game. You're going to get a figure. And that's what I like. I can't take them all with me, so I want to share the wealth. And that's why I do these videos. That's why I don't monetize my channel. I wish if you watch me, share it and like it. That gives me a chance that maybe at some point I could monetize it. But really what I want to do is share the concept of the hobby with you. Now, I know this has to do with nothing that we're talking about in normal gaming, but I wanted you guys to get this because it's an important thing to me. Hope you guys get some value out of it. So until we have a chance to speak again, you guys have a great Halloween. Enjoy your holiday. Remember, it's all in fun. Don't actually go worship the devil. Not a good plan. But fight me, devils, fight. I hate peace, and game on.